So that's kind of gets us started on our journey. Let me tell you, uh, I want to tell you three things about Rick Noble, okay? Number one, he is my dear friend. We're involved in a lot of things together, and I have found that there are times when Rick has limits, and there are times when he has no limits. Now, the one time that you don't want to trust Rick, this is my third point. Don't trust Rick with a camera or a picture because he'll share it across the internet. All right? If you ever get in a situation, and see, here I am, I'm away from my family, away from my wife. We get in and we're rooming together, and I just asked him one night, I said, Rick, would you tuck me in? He wouldn't tuck me in. And so, yeah, I'm just trying to tell you where his limits are on this thing, okay? And the last thing, if you ever get caught in a project with Rick and both of your hands are tied up with something and your pants start sliding down a little bit, he won't pull your pants up. All right? So I'm just trying to tell you, be careful with Rick. Okay. All right. I'm sorry about that. Okay. We had certain objectives going on this mission trip. Mission trip is a little bit different than most mission trips that people go on because we have missionaries in Tanzania and Malawi who do scan and email World Bible School. And so what we provide them with are the tools in order to do the scan and email. We met with our first bullet's gone. We met with our four existing missionaries. Three of them are English speaking and one Swahili speaking. And we'll tell you more about those four as we go through the presentation. We added four new ones, two English speaking and two Swahili speaking. And all the English speaking missionaries we have send us lessons. They scan those lessons and they send them to us by email. The teachers grade those lessons, and we send our response and comments back to the student through our missionary. We took with us 5 laptops that we bought here in the United States in order to we saved a good bit of money by buying them here and take them over there with us. Once we got there, we purchased combination printers and scanners so that they could scan the lessons and be able to print out the response once they got the response back from us. We also provided modems to them, wireless internet service, all of this they need in order to do the scan and email thing. We provide guidance to all of our missionaries. We like to explain to them what our expectations are. We don't leave them out there and say, hey, just do the best you can. We try to tell them, hey, we would like for you to scan and email at least 30 to 40 lessons per week. That gives them something that they can put their hands around and say, I understand, this is what I need to do. Now, there are times when they don't send us any because students may be out for 2 weeks. A lot of times they use students as their World Bible School students. So they're going to schools to do this. While I was there, it's very difficult to send money from here to Africa. I used Western Union for a long time. Costs a lot of money. Costs like 6 to 10% of what you're sending. And so in paying their salaries, it was much cost effective for me to take that money with me and pay them over there. Pay them in U.S. dollars, let them exchange that into their own currency. And so that's one thing that I got done. Meant carrying a lot of money over there with me, but we were able to do that and get them paid. Saved us a good bit of money in doing that. The other thing, the Swahili missionaries, they use lessons printed in Swahili. They don't scan and email anything to us. They simply use the lessons. They go into the villages and they simply grade the lessons themselves and work with them. And we're seeing a lot of results from the Swahili missionaries. Uh, the people we had been buying the Swahili lessons from was the Andrew Connolly School of Preaching, and they stopped printing those lessons. And so while we were there, we went to see three producers or three companies who would reproduce those Swahili lessons for us. Two of them very, very expensive. Third one worked with us and was able to bring the price down to the point that I could double the amount of lessons that we bought. I originally planned to buy 1 year of lessons. Now I bought 2 years of lessons. And so I was able to get the price down enough to double up on that and to save some money. And we'll tell you a little bit later about how we saved that money. We visited churches, we visited schools and prisons, and we'll have more detail, we'll have pictures about each one of those. And each one of these guys will be sharing certain portions of that. Michael will kick it off with telling us about what happened in Dar es Salaam.
So I'll try to do that. First place we went, we flew into Dar es Salaam. If you saw earlier on the slides, we went from Huntsville to Dallas, over to Abu Dhabi, and then into Dar es Salaam. We spent 3 days there, and we met with several of our missionaries there. 4. 2 were new. First one here is Humphrey. And he's a new English-speaking scan and email person that we brought on board. And Omri is Swahili-speaking. We met with him. One of the neat things about that, I'd never been in any meetings or any prayer sessions where there was translators. So we had several prayers together, and somebody would either be praying in English and be translated to Swahili or vice versa. That was good. Willie, and someone will talk more about Willie in a minute, but Willie is actually our first missionary, and he was there. We met with him and refreshed with him and reoccurring training, and we were surprised that he was planning on coming. And he showed up with his wife and his youngest child, which we weren't expecting. So that brought about some different arrangements and accommodations other than what we planned. And we've got the old man Wendell, Babu, and we have the young Wendell. I think we all probably enjoyed the young Wendell a lot more than the old Wendell. One of the things we went to do, had mentioned we brought laptops, but we had to get printers. It was less expensive to get printers there than to buy them here and take them over. There were size and weight restraints. So this is one of the 3 places we went looking for the appropriate printer at the appropriate price. And we were very thorough in making sure we got the right one, and we got a good price for it. And then this is Humphrey. We're setting up his printer and hooking up with the laptop and showing him how to use it. I've got several pictures here of that happening. Humphrey was not real tech savvy. And after a while, it was kind of like, wow, hopefully we finally figured this out. Just one of the challenges was he opened a computer, he turned it on, and it come up, and it said, enter the password. And we told him the password, Monrovia 2017. And then we had to explain to him how to make a capital M in Monrovia 2017. So I'm like, oh, this is going to be a challenge. So hopefully I can go back. So you see, as we went through this, we had several people assisting and showing him how to do it. Of course, we had to figure out how to set the right settings on the printer to make it work, and we went over with them, and this particular one is where they're just practice. And I will say that you got it figured out. Humphreys has sent us already 35 new students. There's 7 lessons per student, so he's got 35 students, and some of them have done several lessons so far. And right now, the schools are on vacation, so that's stopped the process here for a couple weeks till they get back. One of the nice things is Tanzania requires that the schools teach religion, and they allow Oral Bible School to be a curriculum for that teaching. This is another picture of Omri, and a couple of the ladies had sent over scarves for the missionaries' wives because we didn't want them to feel like they were left out. So that was Omri holding up the scarf that he had picked out for his wife. And this is the 4 missionaries that we met with there. And the 2 new ones, one English, one Swahili. And I don't think I mentioned Michael yet. Michael's been with us a long time too. And we brought him down because he's very, very skillful in presenting the lessons and also in the scan and email. This is the last picture for me. Dar es Salaam, how do you get around? That little thing in the middle between the yellow truck and the white car is a 3-wheeled motorcycle that they put some kind of tarp over, and that's a taxi. I'm glad we didn't use that taxi. I don't know if y'all want to get in that taxi or not, but that's one of the ways that they get around.
So next, we went to the Arusha Kasongo Karatu area. So just quickly on the map, we flew into Dar es Salaam. It was about 21 hours on a plane. Was all said and done. Spent a couple days there. And then from there, we flew to Arusha. So that's about a 45-minute flight. Kind of gives you an idea of how far it is. This is where we met, where Michael came with us down here. So he flew with us back. And then we met Edwin over here. And then Daniel and Elias came over to meet us over here as well. So that's kind of an idea of where we were. And so this is Michael Medalami. So he is the Dean of Students at the Andrew Connolly School of Preaching. Very, very well educated, very, very knowledgeable in the Bible, very, very responsible with money management. And so we've made him the northern coordinator of Tanzania for all the guys that I just showed you. He's going to take care of the guys in Dar es Salaam and the guys over on the far western part of the country. He's responsible for visiting each missionary once a year, collecting their monthly reports that we get back so we know how many students that they're working with. And he will also be able to disperse some of the funds for some of the things that we've entrusted him with. So Michael is married, so that's his wife, Judith. We had a chance to go see their house that they're renting right now. It's not too far from the school, but he's also in the process of building his own house. So we also got a chance to go see that, and that's going to be much closer to the school where he works right now. And then Edwin, this is one of the new missionaries that you guys are helping to support. Remember, we asked for some volunteers to commit to supporting one of the new missionaries. Here's one of them, Edwin Kashumba. Funny story about him, he is English speaking. We didn't know we met him until about 30 minutes afterwards. We were in a rush to get to Arusha, and we all piled into the van, and Africa time is whenever everybody shows up, you leave, and so we were already running kind of late to get there. And so we pile into the van, and we start going, and we just thought we were giving a guy a ride into town because they do that a lot around there. We get out and we go in to exchange money, and this guy gets out and he's following us everywhere. And I'm thinking, well, Wendell's got, lots and lots of money that he's needing to exchange. So I just kind of turn around and introduce myself. Hey, I'm Brian. He goes, Brother Brian, my name is Edwin Kashuma. And he talks about 10 times louder than that. And it's like, oh, Edwin, you're one of our new missionaries. Yes, brother, my name is Edwin. So there you go. That's how we met him. And so he was like that everywhere we went. Really great guy. Fun to be around. A lot of good stories to tell about Edwin. He is married as well. And so the last day we went to visit him, and that's his.
Check out the pink flip-flops.
Yeah. So.
I think he gave those to his son, though.
So earlier that day, we were out looking at the garden at the school, and he was walking around to get some livestock. They got loose, and he stepped in what he thought was hard mud, and it wasn't, and he sank down into about the middle of his legs there, and so he had to take his shoes off, and that's the only flip-flops that he could find. But part of life in Africa, speaking of the mud, to get to their house, you're going down a dirt road, and it's got big, cracks in it and potholes or whatnot. And some of it's filled with water if it's rained recently. And then we turn off to get to his place. And I thought we were driving through a ditch because, the way this thing was, the van was bouncing all over the place. And I told him, I said, hey, I didn't know this was a road. And the driver, his name was Augustine, he looks at me, he just says, this is Africa, Brian. And so that's just what you do. You just never know where you're going to end up going. So some of the places, you had to sleep under mosquito nets when we were there. I think we saw 2 or 3 mosquitoes the whole time, so it probably wasn't necessary, but I didn't want to take any chances. Life there, if you can see, the main roads are paved okay, and you got a bunch of cars. And there's, I think, over 1 million people in Arusha where we were. But this guy right here, that's him, and he's just pulling this. And he's pulling whatever he's pulling. And you see a lot of that, just a lot of manual labor, just getting from point A to point B, sharing the road with everybody. Again, this is some of the roads after it rains. It just gets really bogged down with mud. But the cars over there, you just drive through. And if you decide you can't make it, you just don't go to wherever you're going that day. And you try again the next day. We went out to visit a lot of schools. This is one of the schools in Kratu. It was roughly about a 2-hour drive, if I remember. Some of these students here are students that we have here. I think Linda Stanley had a couple here. I know Michael had a few. I had a student that was here, so we got to meet them. They sang the Tanzanian national anthem for us. So here's the group picture of that particular school. Very well educated students, very responsible, doing their best that they can. And this is only not quite all the students because, again, when it rains over there, they live in such a remote place that they can't get to school. Either the little transportation they had couldn't drive down the roads, or they just can't walk to school just because of the mud. So very different than what it is here. We went to a second school there, and this is just what the inside looked like. Just a small little wooden bench with a small desk, and they all have their notebooks out here, and this is what they do. They write everything down, and they have an instructor with a blackboard, and that's what they do. And so there's none of this, technology in the classroom, the no projectors that the kids have here in the Madison schools or whatnot. So very, very different. Group picture, they were all just super pleased to have visitors come. They were pleased when Wendell told them that we have pins to give them, and peppermints, and bracelets, and little gifts that we took with us. So they're just very thankful for that. And then went to a third school there, and it was way out, and the van was fishtailing, and Rick thought the van was going to get stuck when we got there. And it was just very, very different, but it's what you do over there. And so that school was very neat. They all go into a hospitality trade because we went for lunch at one of these places that Michael picked out for us. And this is a 5-star resort over there, and this is where all the people go that come see the Serengeti National Park or the Ngorongoro Crater. A lot of the students that we met, they go to hospitality schools. They're learning the trade to be into hospitality, how to set a 5-course meal play set, how to make up a bed, that's worthy of people that are spending thousands and thousands of dollars. People from Asia, from Europe, America, all come to these places to go see the game. And so they're hoping that as they go through the school, they'll get jobs at some of these really nice resorts to be able to provide for their families. We also attended church with the guys on Sunday. So this is the outside of their church building right here. This is the new converts class. So the preacher that is this guy right here, or one of the preachers there, and he's working with a lot of the young men to what it's like to be a Christian, and so they're working with them during class time. Children's classes, a lot of kids at this church, they filled up the building when service time came, so this is the children's class that they had. And one interesting note here is this is the guy that was preaching for us. He speaks in Swahili, and this guy was translating in English. You could understand him pretty well, but nobody could understand the name Wendell. So they asked Wendell to lead the first prayer. So this means first prayer right here, and it's kind of hard to see. But they wrote his name Window. Everybody thinks that Wendell is window. And don't let them fool you about Babu. Babu is not, great, respected, wise one that he thinks it is. It's old dude with little hair is what Babu means. So you got to take his stories with a grain of salt. But when service was over, it's really neat. They all filed out. They were all singing a song in Swahili. Couldn't tell you what they were singing. But they all filed out, and they start making a line, and you shake everybody's hand as you go. So when you get to the end of the line, you join the line, and then people behind you, you come, and you just shake their hand. So everybody gets to shake everybody's hand when you're done. A very, very neat tradition that they have. Again, just beautiful, beautiful scenery that they have there. That's one of the mountains with a little cloud on top. And then the next two missionaries, remember, I'm going to talk about are right here, Daniel and Elias. This is about a full day drive on one of their buses from Arusha to Mwanza. And so Elias was one of the ones that we met, a little bit of an older gentleman, but has 5 or 6 kids, if I remember correctly. Very nice guy. Then Daniel right here has been with us for a little bit, so we got to meet him again, or me and Michael met him for the first time, then Wendell and Rick met him a time before. Young guy, married, but he's responsible for a church in Mahaha, and the church has over 130 members, roughly, that attend every Sunday, and that's excluding kids, so with kids, there's no telling how much it is. But what Wendell was talking about with the printing, with the Swahili lessons, we were able to save some money for that, about $3,000, that Daniel is wanting to build a church in Mahaha for all the members to come and worship. And so we gave that $3,000 to them. They are starting the church construction project, and everything there is manual labor. So this is a guy, and he's digging all the ditches right here for the foundation for it. And this is Daniel laying the stone for some of the foundation. Everything is manual there, no equipment whatsoever. There's the foundation where they had it laid, and so the next spot, or the next task is laying brick. And so they make all their brick by hand. So this guy's making the brick right here. And so that's meant it's going to take about $10,000 to complete the church. There's somebody else that we're working with that may be interested in helping support that financially. But we're also looking at our World Bible School budget here, or our mission budget overall, to see if we can maybe help contribute to finish that project in Mahaha. But again, great success there. And go ahead.
Just one note about this. Several years ago, we told you about a student that Michael Middlelamy had, who had gone back to his home village of Mahaha, and he called Michael and said, "Hey, I want you to come here and baptize me." It took him a day and a half to get there. Once he gets there, this 18-year-old young man had a Bible study set up, I think, with like 18 or 20 people. So Michael conducted the Bible study. They baptized 13 the next morning, had another Bible study, baptized 3 the next day. That's the beginning of this church. That church did not begin until that student, his name is Jeremiah M. Caduzo. So he is the reason for this church, and Daniel has taken on, has really done a great job with the church.
Okay, Rick will talk about the next part of our trip here.
Okay, while we were in the Arusha area, we went to visit the Alpha Omega Christian Secondary School. Danny and Nancy Smelser started Tanzania Christian Services Foundation several years ago and built a medical clinic in Monduli, Tanzania, where they've been working since 2009. Danny wanted to have Tanzanian doctors and nurses in his clinic, and he found that when he was trying to find the right students that he could actually sponsor and send to medical school, there were very few available that had any real training in the sciences as a part of their education. And so they weren't qualified to go to school. So they had a vision of actually starting a school where the students could focus on the sciences and be better prepared for improved jobs afterwards. So that was the reason that this school was actually created. This is Dr. Danny Smelser. His father was a minister at Salem Church of Christ, where Cynthia and I grew up, so we've known him since our teenage years. And this is where Cynthia and I have made several trips to go visit and work in the area of evangelism associated with the clinic that they have there. This is Danny's wife, Nancy. She's a nurse, and she works at the clinic when they're there. They spend about 8 months out of the year in Tanzania. They gave up a very lucrative life here in the U.S. with him being a physician to dedicate their lives to work in Tanzania. They're great people. Danny actually took us on a quick tour of the clinic while we were there. This is a picture of the treatment room. I think Wendell thought this was the maternity ward. He seems to be. I told him I've never seen him look like this before. This is the only time.
Don't trust Rick Noble, I'm telling you.
I did not take this photo. This was the waiting room where the patients actually sit and wait to be called back into the clinic. This is a photo of the doctor's house. He grew up as a farming kid and loves flowers and plants, so they've actually created a very beautiful place there. There's some information here. One of the things that troubles Tanzania is what they call the cycle of poverty. You can see there how it's self-perpetuating, and it's very difficult, especially for the females, for wives and daughters. They have a very difficult life in the Maasai culture. A Maasai man will typically have multiple wives, 5 or 6 even, and as a result, the ladies are just not treated well. So one of the goals of the school is to actually break that cycle of poverty by giving kids a better education. Here is the original classroom building. They started this school one grade at a time. It's called Form 1 through Form 4. It's equivalent to our 9th, 10th, 11th grade schools. So here's a building that where they have the classes. This is it's a boarding school. So this is where the boys and girls actually live. The left half is boys, the right half is for girls. There's a matron in the middle to keep things separated. And we talked to some of the girls, and they were very excited that they're building a new dormitory for the boys. So all the boys will move out of this one. It'll become girls only. And they seemed odd to me, but they said the boys are way too noisy, and they'll be glad when they're in a different building. We visited a couple of the classes that were in session while we were there. This is a picture of some of the students in one. This was the other class. You'll notice the kids wear school uniforms there in Africa. That's standard, regardless of whether it's private or public schools. They have quite an extensive building program underway. This is one of the new buildings that's under construction. They've added Form 1 and Form 2 already, so this next year they'll have Form 3 added, so they're getting ready for that. We enjoyed the time while we were there. These guys got to meet the doctor and Nancy, and I think they'll agree that it's quite an impressive vision that they've had, and it is coming to fruition because God's blessing their efforts. When we finished in Tanzania, the two amigos came back home. Wendell and I traveled on to Malawi to work with our evangelist down there, who is Tim Plex Nkosi. Several pictures here. I'm going to run through them, then I'll give you some additional information. Photo of some of the men that were working with us while we were there. There were a number of baptisms while we were in Malawi. This is a group of 15 World Bible School students who wanted to be baptized. So Wendell and I went with them down to the river, and you can see how muddy the river is. In fact, the water was running quite quickly, and to be safe, they wanted to stay near the shore. So they had to use a couple of shovels to dig out all the silt and mud, clearing it enough that it would be deep enough to have the baptisms. And so they were baptizing the students. Made me think about how many of us would be willing to go to a place like that to be baptized. And even though you come out dirtier than when you went under, you come out cleaner than you'll have ever been. We visited a few schools and churches while we were there, pictures of some of those. Everywhere we went, we were invited, I guess the right word, to speak multiple times in some cases. So we got tired of hearing each other give some of the same speeches over and over again, but it was very enjoyable. This is a group of men that were baptized at one of the prisons. I'll tell you a little bit more about that in just a minute. A couple of World Bible School students who were baptized in the spring, as you can see there. This was kind of interesting. The water was running in on the opposite end, and so Tim Plex broke off a long limb to see how deep the water was. Well, he couldn't reach the bottom in the one end, but he got to the other end, and he found a place where he could, and it'd be safe to baptize. What he didn't tell the people who were going in, though, there was actually a step off where he wanted them to go. So they go in, and the water's about to their knees, and then he has them take another step, and they go to their waist. And these people don't get in water like we do. They do not submerge themselves in water. So this is quite an experience for them, and was very scary for them as well. But they were brave enough, they went through with it. A number of men. Tim Plex has quite an organization there of different evangelists. It's sort of a network, and this was a lot of those people that work with Tim Plex.
Because of
Sorry, I have my notes here. I wanted to just tell you a few more things about Malawi. Wendell and I spent 3 working days in Malawi, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Tuesday was travel, and Saturday was travel back. We visited 3 prisons while we were there. One prison, 21 people were baptized. These are all World Bible School students that Templex and the other evangelists have been working with. Another prison, 13 were baptized. And the third prison we visited, there were several who really wanted to be baptized, but they did not have any water available that day. So the chaplain there was going to make arrangements so that Templex or one of the others could come back and perform the baptisms. There was a 4th prison we were supposed to visit. It was a 3.5-hour drive away, and we had a flat tire on the way. When they installed the spare, we could see that it was ready at any moment to blow. The treads on the tire were gone. So we did not make that long trip to the other prison. A couple of the evangelists went over on public transportation. There were 15 World Bible School students that baptized in that muddy creek that I showed you, and then 3 were baptized in that spring that we had pictures of. That Friday was a particularly long and trying day. We went without eating or a restroom break for 11 hours. That was a new personal best for me. I don't know about Wendell. Templex wore us out on that trip all 3 days, but it was great. I mean, he had so many more things scheduled that we couldn't even get to. It was amazing. Michael and Brian had 8 airplane takeoffs and landings on that trip. Wendell and I had 10. And I mention that because I don't know that I've ever been on a trip where everything went so well as it did. We had one flight. Our flight back from Dallas to Huntsville was an hour late. Other than that, everything was smooth. And just an indication of how much God blessed us on that trip.
This very last chart I'd like to talk about very, very briefly. This is what has happened in the first 3 months of this year. 2015, we had 134 baptisms from our 4 missionaries. In 2016, I think that number was 154. So far this year, we have 43 baptisms, a lot of students. You'll see a number of zeros up there because they're new missionaries, and those numbers won't start coming in until they get all their materials and everything and get things cranked up in the system. Thank you so much for supporting World Bible School program. If you are interested in helping us, because we have new missionaries, we have lots and lots of lessons. This is the one class here that I know of where you come to class not for yourself. You come for somebody else. And so you're working with students, and so it's complete outreach. Everything that's in World Bible School is biblically based. There's a scripture for every question, for every answer. And so you'll be involved in the Bible, but you'll also be reaching out to students. Let me say this about these 3 men. If somebody had told me that we'd go on this mission trip and things would be conducted as well as they were, and we accomplished as much as we did, and we got along as well as we did, I can't imagine it being any better. So I've already had friendships. Now I've got much, much closer friendships. But thank you so much for supporting our effort in going to this. Does anybody have questions? Yes, ma'am. If you ask our missionaries, every one of them, Willie says, come and see me. I want you to stay with me for 3 weeks. Templex says, come and stay with me. I want you to be here for 3 weeks. I mean, that's kind of what we get. The next trip that we've talked about, don't know if we're going to be able to do this or not. Because the church building is being built in Mahaha, Rick and I, we talked about the possibility of making that trip to assist them in building that building. We don't know if we do that, it'll be sometime between now and the fall.
Cynthia and I are planning to make a trip this fall for sure, even if this doesn't pan out. So if anybody would like to participate, let me know. We're probably looking at second half September or October time frame.
Any other questions? Thank y'all so much. Y'all have a great day.